Damiani, you got to play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I played this like a demo at like Summer Game Fest. I think it was like 20 minutes or so. You got to play a bit more recently. Yeah, let us know what you get to do.
Yeah, they did mention for people who got to play this that like if you got to play it at one of our other events, this is a much more fleshed out demo than you probably got a chance to play. This is a slice of the not even a slice. Sorry, they just start you off at the beginning of the game. We got to play roughly 3.5 hours, like between 3.5 4 hours.
Nice.
Starting from the very beginning of the game. They give us a little short presentation at the beginning. Went over some information. I think a lot of it is just stuff you've already heard. You know, the developer, their pedigree, just who you're playing as. You know, you're playing as Sargon.
Well, do remind us, though. Who was that again? Is that UbiArt guys or no?
So Montpellier, it's the developers of some of the Rayman games and one of the Prince of Persia games.
Got it.
They just reiterated they're inspired by Metroidvanias. Like I will say, from my hands-on time, like I was getting Metroid Dread vibes a lot. It felt like very reminiscent of Metroid Dread. You play as Sargon, who is the youngest, newest member of a group of elite warriors known as the Immortals. If you've seen 300, like the Immortals, it's like, you know, kind of going off that. You go off to this place called Mount Kof to rescue the prince after he's been kidnapped. And you find out that there's a curse on that mountain. And if you're familiar with a certain trilogy from the Prince of Persia, you'll probably know what that curse involves. Time. So some weird time shenanigans are going on there, and you are having to unravel this mystery of like, why was the prince... You'll see that the prince was kidnapped by someone you might not have expected. What were their motives? And what's the truth behind what's going on in this mountain? Why are people experiencing time differently as you come across different NPCs? Because this game, as you know, it's a side-scrolling action, platforming heavy, a lot of like, you know, exploration, but also side quests. So you do interact with NPCs who give you quests. There's like shop vendors. It's like everything you'd kind of like expect is there.
Yeah. From what I remember before, you know, you would go through areas and then you would come across what I would essentially like categorize as like a safe room kind of a thing, to where it's like you have like the same guy in multiple areas and stuff like that, right? Those shopkeepers are like, it's not different shopkeepers. It's like you have. Yeah. You
have we'll get into it with the structure, but like, to answer your question, there are warp statues that you access. They're like the portals in Castlevania games, but there are also the trees, the walk trees that are like kind of like your bonfires that you can save at. So you can fast travel at the statues, and some of them are near those trees. Trees replenish all of your health and other attributes, but it comes at the cost of enemies respawn. So it's like kind of got that like, you know, risk reward, but obviously you want to trigger your first one once you come across them, because when you die, you go back to the most recent one that you came across and, you know, accessed. So that's how it works. Again, I said this was about 3.5 to 4 hours. They wanted to stress that the final game will be about 20 to 25 hours.
That's pretty lengthy for Metroidvania.
Yeah, I can see probably how it's going to be about that long, given the slice we played and how much I think we played through. Maybe I think that might be on the higher end, honestly, from my impression. But again, who knows? Because it's a Fog of War map where you have to like progress to see the map, and I don't know. Zooming out, it would look pretty big, and I only saw a little bit of it, so who knows? So yes, they got lots of zones. You start off kind of like in a ruin zone. Eventually you'll like go to a forest. There was like one area I tried to go to that like felt like a Blight Town, you know, lots of like, you know, wooden platforms, very rickety, but I didn't have an ability to get through it. So you definitely have that Metroidvania feel of you'll come across spots you can't quite access yet. And this game does do a great thing where you can do these like memory shards where you can snap, hit like the down on the D-pad. Well, you'll snap an image of that screen and it'll log it onto your map so that you don't forget that, oh, there was something here. What was it? Let me bring up the screenshot. Oh, there's a chest there I can't reach. Oh, I should go back and get it. Or there's a path here I couldn't break through a wall with my skills. So that's kind of a nice way to add, you know, notations to your map without, you know, having handwriting or something like that. So I don't know if any other game's done that. but this is, I think, the first time I've seen something like that, so I kind of appreciated that. That was a really nice quality of life feature. But real quick, before we get into that, like just the basics of like how you play this game. You have platforming, obviously, so you have your basic jump. You have a slide. You can slide, and when you hold down the button to slide, you'll get up and start running if you keep holding it down. You have like your basic 1, 2, 3 attacks. You have a parry, and you have a dodge as well. And your attacks can be, there's neutral attacks. There's like, you can hit up on the directional pad, and then you have like aerial attacks as well. And in the air, you can also do like slam attacks down, which is kind of cool. So you have all these different like kind of abilities that you can use, and as you progress, you're going to get new ones. Like one of the ones I got a little further into the game was the air dash, like the first air dash, which was a pretty big deal, and it's pretty clear that I was probably going to get like a double jump at some point or something similar to that. You have like in terms of like gear and equipables, you have these amulets that it's like Hollow Knight. You know how Hollow Knight, each one's worth a value?
Yeah.
You put one on, it costs a certain amount. You start off with like 4 points, and the amulets cost anywhere between 1 and 2 at the beginning. And yeah, you just can equip as many as you want, and they have like one give you an additional health bar. You start with like 3 health bars. This one gave you a temporary 4th. If you lost it, you had to go back to like the walk tree to, kind of like save there and reactivate it. Otherwise, it would be like, gone for a while. And so you got stuff like that. You can buy, there's a whole forge system. There's a blacksmith in the game who will upgrade your weapons. You have your 2 swords. I actually forgot what they were called. They have names.
Right.
You will get a bow and arrow later as well. So you can like upgrade their potency. You can increase like your arrow capacity. You can increase health potency and how many healing potions. It's just like an SS flag or flask. Wow. Or any like healing item in any game you've ever played. You just hit like up on the D-pad. It'll use it. You got to go back to the tree again to regenerate those. Didn't seem like there's a way to pick up extra in the environment. So, it's kind of following that formula. And that's kind of like the basics for how you control what you got.
Yeah, I remember the blacksmith being there, but not, again, for having like such a short demo, they didn't really have a lot there that you could do with them. But yeah, one of the things that I remember from the bosses that we did is that there is a counter system, kind of similar to Dread and Samus Returns. Yeah.
Yeah. So early on in the tutorial zone, which is a giant battlefield where you and the Immortals are basically repelling a giant invading army, they teach you about like all the stuff I just talked about. Plus, when an enemy flashes yellow, you can parry that attack and does like a cinematic counter. Think like a Mortal Kombat when you do those like what are they called, the crush counters or whatever, where it's all like breaking their skull and stuff. Sorry, I forget the name, but it's kind of like that. It's like a cutscene where Sargon does like the cool like knee to a head like kick and then like sends them flying and then follows up with like a cool slash. So you'll know you did it right, but if you get it wrong, you obviously get to take damage. And you do have basic parries as well. That and then there's unblockables, like the red flash means you just need to dodge or get out of the way, and that's kind of the system with enemies. You'll notice they have like just the little white flash, which is just basic parry, the yellow for the counter parries, and then the red for get out of the way. And you're just kind of like getting into a rhythm of like executing those combos, maybe dashing away or parrying them to take advantage of that. For like remedial enemies, it's more about like if you get too many around you, it can be a challenge to deal with that. Bosses, it's about learning their patterns. And I will say there for difficulty settings real quick, a lot of different difficulty options, and there is a custom difficulty option. So if any of the existing difficulty options aren't to your liking, there's a slider for everything. You can customize it to whatever you want. You can change that at any point in the game. So like Huber is going to be thrilled that they have like it's from the very beginning. All that's there. They have accessibility features. They have guided mode, which is kind of like alerts you to things on the map. So if you are someone who's not used to Metroidvanias or exploring in a 2D game, it'll kind of highlight where you should be going, and you could completely turn it off if you don't want that.
Yeah, I remember there was a point, even in the demo, where I was like, wait, where am I supposed to be heading? I like backtracked a lot to just like try to figure it out, but...
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree. Even when I play, there's a decent amount of backtracking, so it can be easy to get lost if you're not taking advantage of that stuff. There's also platform assist for people who just aren't good at the platforming part of these games. Like you can be good at combat, but having to jump and it's not even just jump. It's not like platforming combat. It's just like what you expect from Prince of Persia. Those like spikes on the wall,
Right.
Pendulums swinging, like traps. Like you have to. There are a good few sequences I came across where I personally loved it. I was like, this is great. Like I hope there are like way more of these. And I was obviously like having no problem with them because I love platformers and it's like, more my wheelhouse. But I definitely can see how some people that's obstructing you from progressing. It will just assist you in getting through that really easily so that you can focus on getting over platforming segments. So they kind of thought of like maybe not everything, but a lot. Like if you're having trouble with like exploration, they got that. You can turn the combat and enemies, like enemy difficulty down if you're not good at combat. And there's a way to get past platforming if you get stuck on that. They also touted, the other basic accessibility stuff like colorblind mode, a few other ones they're going to have in there. So definitely, covering a lot of bases there. So, nice to see those becoming a little bit more standard, I would say.
Yeah, and then how much of the kind of time stuff did you see? Because I remember from like the opening area, there were some spots where you kind of like make platforms that fell apart come back together and that sort of thing.
Yes. So very early on, you come across these like kind of like purple distortions or purple red distortions that when you attack them and destroy them, it will impact the environment. And if all the ones I saw looked like they rewound time. So you'd have like platforms that were all over the place, shattered, destroyed, reassemble, and provide a path forward. And that was pretty much every single one I came across was that. Some of the objectives involved, I can't quite reach that one yet. Let's go get a new ability. One of the first objectives is you're trying to follow the prince and the prince's captors to where their destination, but you can't quite make it because you can't hit one of those distortions with your swords. It's too far away. And they suggest going to one of your other companions who's an archer and maybe tracking them down. So you're going to go get the bow and you're going to come back later and do that. So that's kind of like what they had. They had a amulet that slowed down time if you used so once you get the bow and arrow, you also get the ability to hold down a charge button attack and throw out chakrams. And if you wear the amulet with that, I didn't actually use this, but it will slow down time a little bit for you to be able to focus a little bit more because you have to manually aim it. And some of it's puzzle. It's not just for attacks. There's a whole sequence where you got to fire out they're like boom. It's a boomerang effect. It'll go out and you can call it back to you. So you'll fire it at a switch that will like make platforms move. So that's the first part. Oh, the platforms move together. I was on one. Now I cross over to the other platform. Then you call it back. They separate again, and you go to the other side. So there's a little bit of that going on as well. So I can see maybe people, if there's action, like enemies attacking you during those sequences, you might want that slowdown to make it a little bit easier to solve those puzzles, for sure. But no... Okay, there is a thing near the end. I'm not going to specifically say what's going on because I thought it was a pretty big spoiler. It was a massive twist.
Oh, okay.
But there was time manipulation that happened in a certain sequence. And it wasn't you. I'll say that. And it's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? So maybe at some point you will get that Prince of Persia Sands of Time literal ability to just rewind time. Obviously, I'm blanking on the trailers if they've already showed that, but I didn't come across that in the demo. But I'm pretty sure you're going to get probably some ability where you can like manipulate time manually, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and what you're saying too about going to the archer and getting their abilities, that's kind of a cool way to handle that with that crew. I think that all of that crew when we first saw them is like, okay, like every one of us had somebody else that we identified with, like, can I play with that person? And yeah, so I'm interested to see how much you actually interact with them. Because they all kind of like seem to sort of shun you in the beginning. It's like, all right, you're on your own, kid. I'm like, okay, cool.
Well, I think what happens is, from my context, is that, I mean, you have, after like the training segment, you all meet on the roof back at like, after you complete your first victory. and you're all like just kind of like, bonding, and you're getting to know the characters a little bit. But once you arrive at the mountain, you guys kind of get separated. And so as you're encountering people, one person, kind of like the brute guy, his name is Orad, I believe. He's like the big burly dude with like the double axe polearm looking thing. He clearly looks like he's not affected by like you. You both are. It seems normal. Nothing's going wrong. But then there's this guy who looks like the second in command person from 300, like Leonidas' like right hand man. They look identical. I think his name is Artaban. He says when you first encounter him after you separate, he says 3 days have gone by, and he's saying he's starting to say like it's difficult to discern what's real and what's not. So I think each person is experiencing something a little bit different, and so it does appear like sometimes that you are isolated, that you can't really rely on anyone else there because you even come across something at one point. You come across a version of yourself, and you're like, what? And you're like, okay, what's going on here? And so you're starting to doubt, like, is what I'm seeing really going on? But there's like a little, in terms of like narrative, there's enough there. Like the mystery is pretty good. There's like twist and there's mystery, and it was never overbearing. Because in a Metroidvania, I don't want to have a heavy-handed story. It is in the opening, it is a bit, but once you get to like the main area of the game, nothing is really overbearing. It was like just what I expected, gave me enough context, and I liked what I was hearing from the characters. They felt very interesting, but they kept it like brief. But at the same time, they felt like they had distinct personalities. Now, whether they feel very well developed by the end is another question. But for an opening, for a setup, it felt pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, and then in terms of like play, I know you're playing over like a remote connection or whatever, but at Summer Game Fest it seemed to play really well. They seemed to be pretty proud of how well it was performing on Switch even and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really didn't encounter almost any issues whatsoever. I think there was like a 5-second span where like there was probably just a slight connection, like throttle, like my internet probably just like buckled for a second. But other than that, like very responsive. I didn't think I was having any issues with like input or anything like that. So, and I think that's a testament because like I could speak to the boss battles, which are pretty challenging because I played on the so I think there's 3 available difficulties in the custom difficulty. There might be actually 4 difficulties. They suggested we play on warrior difficulty, which is they called default difficulty. And they asked us to play with guided mode on in the interest of time. Right. They're like, you can like kind of ignore it, and like I honestly was just going wherever I wanted to go and had fun. So like it wasn't really spoiling anything for me. But those bosses on like default difficulty, there was one of the others that I probably struggled more with, but they didn't feel like pushovers. They felt very. That's why I say like Metroid Dread. It felt like Metroid Dread style fights where you're probably gonna lose a few times, but you're gonna start to pick up on the patterns, and it feels really good when you start figuring out and you start like beating them up, or you get past a certain point that you were struggling with. Really, really good. And I think you and Huber maybe got to play the Manticore fight if you made it to there. That was kind of like the second to last fight that we got to encounter here. I was able to beat it on my second try, but you had a demoist in your session with you, and they were like, we're only going to say one thing because we like of all the sessions and all the like previous demos, we noticed something. We're say one thing, like may we suggest being more patient and keeping your distance in general. Other than that, we won't say anything else. After I lost the first time, I'm like, okay, so I just kind of like hung back a little bit more, and then went in for when I did, and like it got close to the end. It was really intense at the end. Like I thought I had it, and then he did a few new attacks, and I'm like, oh no, I have no more heals. And like, but then I had like, oh, we didn't even talk about this. You have another meter called your Athra, and as it fills up, you can do a special move called an Athra Surge. And there are multiple levels of it. Like you can build up more than 1 meter. You start with just 1, but I got up to 2, and it says I can go beyond that. So you had like kind of like a charge dash attack that will like, you'll be invulnerable during it. I think you're invulnerable during it, and you'll do a lot of damage. Like especially if you're attacking multiple enemies, you'll just like hit them all with it. It's really cool. It's like a big like not quite like Stinger from Devil May Cry, but it kind of resembles that. Then there was one that made like a giant AoE healing puddle that you could stand in and just like heal. That one was very useful. I will say that was a nice one to have. That one costs 2 bars though, so you can either use 2 or the other one, or one of the, there's a bit of choice there. But also, this is a thing that rewards you for playing well, because as you're on the offensive and doing damage, you build up meter. You take damage, you lose it. So you have to it's not just about being aggressive. You have to also avoid damage. And I kind of like that about it, because there were points in some of the boss fights where I had it ready to go, about to unleash it. I took a hit. Oh, I don't have enough. I was like, uh-oh, now I gotta I was like, why isn't it? Oh no, I lost my meter. So yeah, they throw a good amount at you with these boss fights. So I was pretty pleasantly surprised with them, and they felt very satisfactory. And I can't imagine them on the harder difficulties. They're gonna, if you want a challenge, I feel like these can be a real challenge. I don't know if they have different attack patterns or anything like that, or they just take more damage and do more damage. But yeah, good stuff from the bosses I encountered. I got I think I fought 4 or 5, but maybe 1 or 2 are mini boss. But there's a big dude with a giant like pillar who's carrying around. He's swinging and smashing it all over the place. That dude was probably gave me the most trouble, because they want you to parry his attacks, but you take 1 hit, it's so much damage. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that one was fun. And then of course the final one of the demo, and I'm gonna say anime. That the whole fight, the cutscenes they literally, it's like an anime. If you want to see Prince of Persia the anime, it was checking all the boxes. This is insane what's going on for this final boss of the demo.
Nice. Yeah, I like that they're making this. It's easy to look at a side-scrolling game or whatever and think it's smaller or lesser, but it's from my hands-on time and what you're telling me, it really feels like a really well thought out game, a really good successor to Prince of Persia, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's got some top level talent on it, I think, and it's not that far away. It's a month away now, January 18th.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's throwing so much good stuff at you. Economy. I always felt I barely just had enough for one thing. To buy 1 upgrade or buy this 1 item. So some Huber will be pleased with that. Again, we said side quests. You can track them. Very easy to follow. There's the collect 4 of something to upgrade your health or whatever. They these petals. So there are a lot of collectibles, a lot of hidden paths, secrets. I said the platforming. It's definitely there. And then the weapons, you have the swords, you get the bow and arrow, and I imagine there will be more, because they start throwing, once you get the bow and arrow, they start throwing more aerial, bird enemies start showing up, and they're a little bit tougher to just jump up and swing at, but you can aim that bow and arrow and shoot at them, but you only have so many arrows, and they have places where you can replenish them, but you gotta choose with that. And again, yeah, the boss fights, just can't stress enough how good the boss fights were in terms of pushing back. It felt like Dread, but also Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, those bosses first time, you're man, how am I gonna beat this? And you just stick with it. They're not too ridiculous, but you just are losing, then you start winning. You're yeah, here we go. It's something about that sweet spot they hit. These developers, they just know how to make you feel you're in over your head, but slow. It's not quite Souls. I think Souls is a little bit more extreme. It's just below that, where I think it doesn't intimidate and scare off too many people, because they want you to stay there. So it's a little bit of pushback, but also you can do this. You can do this. You just gotta keep at it. So it's pretty cool. I thought the only other thought I could say is the fast travel. Maybe it was just because of first time playthrough and trying to process everything. I felt it came towards the end of the demo time. I thought we would have got fast travel sooner. At one point I was maybe there is no fast travel in this game. But once I unlocked it, they started appearing more rapidly, the statues to teleport. So if you do ever dive into this game, you watch this and you're oh yeah, Damiani said if you're annoyed about no fast travel, just give it a bit. It will start showing up. Maybe a little bit sooner it could have showed up, but I think it's fine. And yeah, just looking over my notes here. Yeah, we talked about the shops. I mean, yeah, it's just pretty cool. And the environments, I said like the forest one was pretty cool. The ruins, like the last thing I'll say, there's like this library area near the end. There's this like monster, like this like I don't know what to call them, like a warlock was like just like kind of like a stalker enemy. You have to be stealth because if you alert it, you can't defeat it. It will just like chase you down, and if it's like the Emmy, except the Emmy kills you in Dread, but this will throw you in a prison and you have to escape. It's like Ocarina of Time. It's like Gerudo. You get thrown into a cell and you got to get back out of the cell again and like retread your path. So you have to use your abilities to like get by them, and sometimes you will have to trigger their alert and you just have to like rush through a sequence. So they have a little bit of that. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And those enemies there, you come across these mad scientists like dudes who are just tossing vials at you, like mad alchemists. They're just throwing like poison vials at you and stuff. And it's like they're like the enemy variety so far has been, pretty good. They've thrown like shielded enemies, so you can't just like spam your attack.
Yeah.
They have ranged filth enemies, like they are throwing stuff at you, and you will have to constantly keep changing up your tactics and your moveset, or utilizing the most of your moveset to really deal with these enemies. So, pretty good. Pretty good stuff. I can't wait to, I said at the end of the session, I'm like, man, I'm just the only thing I'm bummed out about is I have to start all over again when the game comes out. I don't get to carry my progress over because I was like, I'm making some good. That's all right. Yep. Good stuff. I'm sure if you're good at combos, you can do some pretty flashy combos. You got launchers, you got all this stuff. I wasn't that good at it. I probably need way more practice, but for those of you into like character action style combat, you can probably do some good long combo strings in this. So, and there's some amulets and upgrades that increase your combo strings. So you'll definitely be able to, do some really flashy stuff there. So can't wait to see what people have in store for us. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for it. Pretty good stuff.
Sick. Yeah, thank you for checking that out. And again, that's out next month. So keep an eye out for it. Seems to be coming along really well, so I don't expect any kind of like last minute delays or anything unless they really need like a little spit shine or something. But thank you for watching. We are Easy Allies. You can check us out over at patreon.com/Easy Allies. We're supported by our community. And if you would be willing to drop in a couple of bucks there every month, that would help us to keep making stuff like this, keep making podcasts and all that. And we will see you soon.